took that. Hi, everybody. Yeah, my system just crashed. Just a blue screen of death, which Windows is wont to do. Good old System 10. Fabulous. Some reason on this computer I can't update to System 11. I don't know why. Just doesn't want to do it. Because, I don't know, I'm an asshole. So it just ate shit. So hi, welcome back. I tried to jumpstart this a fancy pair of shoes with a tongue and groove slot making machine from the early 30s, and other carvelisms. Let's see, do these buttons work again? Hey, there he is. Yep. So they kind of do. Welcome back. They were on some nonsense.
He's out there, and Harold, James Carville has said things similar to you. You say them more elegantly.
No,
okay, so that's he's
saying. Well, I don't know if that's true because they didn't listen to him.
Hold on, go here.
They didn't keep the both chambers. This one here was ways and say that things are safe when people are seeing things and hearing things that are diametrically opposed.
They were saying things like the subway in New York is safe when it is not safe. Now is it not safe because there's a bunch of immigrants down there doing stuff? No, it's a bunch of homeless people kicking people off of like pushing people in front of the trains and attacking people every so often. And by a bunch, like about the normal number. I think there's a mental health crisis in New York and they have nowhere to put them and they should be institutionalizing people, which is a bigger conversation that I think we can actually have, but who the fuck am I? That said, I don't know. I want to take it back to a time when the New York subway was truly safe. Let's see. Where's I don't know if I can't show a video, so I'll go images. In the old days in New York, when you could just everybody loved riding the New York subway, in the 1970s. And you got on there, it was all just hashtag the best people, and you always made it home. That was the thing. There was plenty of room for everybody. Nobody got hurt in a station. Oh, by the way, that's a picture from the reunion, which is pretty lovely. Before one, I believe it was him that passed away, which was sad, but very cool. And after James Remar had. Remember when the New York subway was known for how peaceful and clean it was? Can't we get back to that? Back when you just have to carry a bat. And it was so easy to get around because they had a very nice map on the wall. Remember that?
Opposed to that. You got to make it safe. And this.
Yeah, you got to make it safe, like Bernard Gates. Getz, right? Right? That was the whole. When was this? 1984 New York subway shooting. When things were so peaceful that nobody could understand why even a guy would pull out a Smith & Wesson Model 38 and shoot a bunch of people who were hassling him with a screwdriver. Yeah, there it is. Let's go back to the day, shall we? Let's make America great again, like it was in 1984. In the early afternoon of December 22nd, 1984, 4 youths from the Bronx, Barry Allen, Troy Canty, Daryl Cabey, and 18-year-old James Ramser, boarded a downtown 2 train. Kenny would later testify the victims were en route to steal from video arcade machines in Manhattan, which, by the way, did not buy them any goodwill from me in 1984 as a 14-year-old arcade goer. 37-year-old Bernard Getz boarded the train on 14th Street in Manhattan. At the time, about 15 to 20 other passengers were in the R22. Troy Canty asked Getz how he was. Shortly thereafter, stood up, approached Gates, made some overture for money. According to Canty, he alone approached Gates and said, "Can I have $5?" According to Gates, Canty was joined by one of the other teens, saying, "Give me $5" in a normal tone of voice with a smile on his face. Also, fuck does that mean? Sorry. I mean, aside from this whole thing, as defenses go, that's shit. If you go, Give me $5. And his buddy stands up right next to him and does this. Yeah, give him $5. Like, that's not a friendly overture, and that's not a normal tone of voice. As a matter of fact, you're intentionally being spooky. It would almost make sense if you're like, hey, man, I need $5. It's like, right now, I'm in a big hurry. Like, you make a case. You're not. It's just, give me $5. Which means I have a weapon and you don't have a... Okay, in 86, concluded the evidence that Gates pulled a handgun and fired 4 shots at the 4 youths, initially striking 3 of them. After initially opening fire, Gates bent down to KB, who was cowering on the ground, said, you don't look so bad, here's another. This is where he was nuts, and this is where it goes completely wrong. Shot once again. KB's spine was severed, causing brain damage, partial paralysis. Shortly after, the train conductor entered the car, allowed us to go, what's going on? Approached Gates, asked him what happened. He said, I don't know, they tried to rob me, and I shot them. You know, back when, you guys remember, back when things on the subway were safe, you know, and these Democrats want to tell people that more people than ever ride the train and per capita crime is down, because it frankly is. And it's not like gangs of robbers or anything like where they're not throwing, you know, unrepentant thieves in jail. It's crazy people pushing people in front of trains.
For instance, here, our message didn't resonate with people. That commercial on transgender procedures was as powerful a commercial that President Trump ran throughout the campaign. I had friends of mine said that was not a powerful commercial, that was not a good thing. It may not have been, but it was.
Okay, no. Dum-dum. Listen. Fuck this dude. There's a difference between not a good thing and not being effective. It can be effective and bad at the same time. It can be a terrible thing that twists people's beliefs and minds, right? Jesus. Can you dig it? What? Hold on. Is there some screaming going on in the chat room about something, or is just the crashing?
It was powerful and effective. So I hope that people are listening to him. I like how he says the idiotic NPR jargon. I don't know if that's necessarily the right way to talk about it, but I know exactly what he's saying, and I hope my party listens.
I did think that it was interesting that James Carville chose to hit NPR, and it wasn't us. Right. It was NPR. He's like, no, you guys actually have a problem here.
Well, I think that...
Also, why in criticizing Democrats, strategy that he believes may have caused part of the problem, why would he criticize the jargon on the 5? He doesn't give a fuck how you guys hypnotize yourself.
He's like looking in the mirror and really feeling what went wrong. He's exploring what went wrong. A lot of Democrats still like in La La Land.
All right, Judge Janine, I don't know what kind of work you've had done, but it's too much.
And not facing the facts. The fact that he is talking about the economy, we all know when we went into the supermarket how much things cost.
Yeah, hold on. This was, okay, you want to talk about a messaging problem? Motherfucker. You guys and I don't know why everybody was afraid to call out supply shock as the reason for inflation. It was not monetary policy. The price of eggs didn't go up because people had too much money in their fucking pocket all of a sudden, and they could charge more for eggs. It went up because of bird flu, you dumb motherfuckers. And so if you come out and go, yeah, supply is down, therefore demand is higher than supply, therefore eggs are expensive. Here's a good idea. Maybe one Democrat, if I could, if we're going to do some, Monday morning quarterbacking, maybe pass a bill for, better bird flu surveillance at poultry farms. You know what I mean? Or better carrying out of the regulations around it. Good Lord.
Spray. Forget about bounty. I'm still confused. 4 towels equals 8. I have no understanding of how that really works anymore.
I think that was supposed to be cute.
But Donald Trump, from the very beginning, he embraced everything.
Because he was out of office and he had caused the problem. He was distanced from it, and everybody there, it was a protection racket. And Democrats, out of a fear, and this is where the jargon has a problem, out of a fear that there will always be someone left out of the solution, there will always be more work to do, having to over-caveat the successes they did have, and that when the slacktivist class on our side or the nitpickers on the right came after us, getting all defensive and just cowering around it. And saying, I'm sorry, when you go to the gym, do you go to the gym just once? You go, what the hell? I went to the gym once. Why aren't I fit? No, it takes constant work. That's what we're here to do. And we have proof that our progress is actually happening, unlike you guys. That's how the languaging has to happen. Instead of, obviously this, a lot of people are hurting right now, and that, there's a large portion of society that isn't getting the help that they need, and we're working on it. Of course you are. You shouldn't even have to talk about that part of it. We're stacking gains, but they were all afraid because they were afraid of getting either corralled by the Twitterati, or castigated, in a situation where when they defended themselves from people on the right, it would sound like they didn't give a shit about the downtrodden or the poor or a minority group or a group that doesn't have anything to do with or hasn't been attached to that that storyline or that talking point, whatever it is. If you're talking about inflation, but what about trans people, that kind of stuff, the whataboutism part of it, fearing that whataboutism instead of going, we'll deal with that in a minute. That's a different topic. And then just moving on. It's appealing when you do that, but when you're trying to encompass a large group of people and they've got a myriad of issues, and it's going to take time to reach some of them, and there are overlapping issues that everybody has. You got to deal with those first, and then you can start dealing with the specialty issues after that fact, unless they're acute and a group is being wiped out. Think the Yazidis being killed in Syria, for example. That would be a true emergency, as opposed to the potential food deserts or food insecurity in certain areas of, southern states where the senators and the House members from those states and the governors aren't playing ball with the federal government, and you can't do anything about it, right? Or because again, all crime is local except federal crimes, obviously. But all retail theft is local. It's dealt with by, unless it's part of a RICO that's spread over multiple states. That's your DA, that's your sheriff, that's your police officers, that's your judges. That's why those things matter, because a lot of times Republicans can manipulate the electorate entirely by their own constituent of judges or whatever, to turning some people loose if they want to do. If I'm a little easygoing, the voters around here will let me do it. But on the other hand, crime will spike a little bit, and that helps my Republican buddies up the ticket, and they know it.
And even
there's no impetus
hanging out
do
at
anything.
the fast food restaurants, whether he was on the line giving out food, whether he was hugging the people behind the counter, whether he was eating McDonald's, he embraced the average man. He looked like he had his finger on the pulse.
Yeah, but he didn't, and he doesn't. And as soon as he got their votes, he had a round table meeting with billionaires, you dumbass. It was a lie. Yes, we know. He's a good liar. He's successful at lying to you dipshits. That's not the conversation. And the lesson gained from this is Democrats need to learn how to bullshit people better.
Even the other day at the Golden Globe Awards, Nikki Glaser, very funny comedian who was the host, she looked at this room full of celebrities, probably a room full of Democrats, and said to them basically,
yeah, because they work with a lot of, women and LGBT and other minorities and stuff. And so, yeah, they must be.
Famous, talented, and powerful. You could do anything except tell the country how to vote.
Oh, yeah, nobody listened. Yeah. Jesse, at some point, the Democrats will find their footing. But it feels like it could be a long time from now.
I hope so. God, I hope it's a long time. Newt predicted 12 years.
That's because that's how long they believed it took from middle of Reagan to Clinton. That's why he said 12.
Oh.
And PBD predicted 12.
PBD, Peanut Butter Dickhead, says 12 years because Newt Gingrich said 12 because that's how long it was from...
Pat Beck David.
Pat Beck David.
You don't know?
Pat Beck David?
Oh, him. I'm surprised. The one person you don't know. You said something that was really poignant.
Oh.
To use some NPR jargon.
Yes.
Harold's so elegant and Carville's effective. And that's the difference. You can be elegant when you speak.
Did you
Lord
say
knows
that?
I
Eloquent.
can be elegant.
I don't
you
think
said
she
you
said
go.
that.
You said, "Oh, you're so elegant," and you go, "Well, Carville's effective. I'd rather
Eloquent.
be effective," and that's the point. In politics, you don't want to be too elegant. You want to, because when you're so elegant, you're trying to impress somebody else.
You will
Harold.
never have this problem.
I could have that problem, but I choose not to, Harold.
Yeah, I only talk like a dumbass, because I know where I work.
I'll have you know that I grew up in the streets of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I know how to talk like a
Streets. Okay, look, because your bicycle rides on a sidewalk and your car drives on the street does not mean you grew up in the streets.
regular person, and everybody knows that. But I've been raised by people with master's degrees and doctorates and went to very prestigious schools. And I'll have you know
Yeah, you grew up rich. We get it.
that my library has a lot of fine leather-bound books, some of which I've read.
What street did you grow up on in Philadelphia?
Yeah, see, even Greg knows this is bullshit.
Not going to disclose that
Is it on the
information.
main line?
He said the
No.
streets. I grew up on the streets of Philadelphia.
I grew up harder than Harold. Prove me wrong.
Prove it wrong. We'll see.
Click here.
Jesus Christ. So, anyways, that's the jerk around that's going on. But the point of that whole thing is they got a bunch of too much of that jogging, and it's fucking everything up. I think here's the longer
So on
version.
Friday, Mike Johnson.
Okay, yeah. So this is the Jen Psaki's. Yeah. So this is Jen Psaki having on. Don't use idiotic NPR jargon. Carville takes lessons learned. Talks lessons learned from Democrats 2024.
Johnson was reelected as Speaker of the House, but not without a healthy dose of drama. I mean, initially Johnson didn't have the votes, and for a moment, it looked like we might be headed for another McCarthy-esque multi-day dumpster fire here in Washington. And then two of the key Republican holdouts decided to vote for Johnson. Of course, right after getting phone calls from Donald Trump. Sometimes that's how it goes. But whatever it took to get over the finish line, if you're Mike Johnson or anyone working for him, I think it's safe to say you're probably breathing a big sigh of relief right now, because it very easily could have gone another way.
And still can.
I mean, just ask Kevin McCarthy. Given what he went through, it was just over a year ago. And it's important to note, before McCarthy's 5-day, 15-ballot fiasco, the last time a Speaker of the House was not elected on the first ballot, without any drama really, was all the way back in 1923. See, the Speaker's vote is supposed to be pretty boring and predictable. And once again, it wasn't. As the Washington Post reported, a total of 9 House Republicans used the vote on Friday to show displeasure with Johnson in one.
Fucking yawn again. And Cenk Uygur will say these are guys who know how to get things done with these fucking impotent dick wags on the floor that delay the inevitable for a little bit and don't help the party, don't make any points for them, don't build them any fucking bridges they'll need later. Gibberish. Yeah, this asshole.
Clear that, we're going to expect the agenda that the president ran on to get delivered. And that's why there were 9 people who withheld their votes. It sends a message that we're going to be watching.
No, it doesn't. It sends a message that 9 of you are going to be strategically unreliable and useless, and that they're going to have to make more deals with Democrats to guarantee they get must-pass bills through Congress, because you fuckers have already signaled that you're going to scuttle them. And Nancy Pelosi was way better at sidelining a couple, not the full squad, but particularly, I think, 3 members, Jayapal, Bush, and Bowman, who would, were going to try and, grandstand and shut some stuff down, and pull this kind of TYT shit. And she was better at, limiting it. And we had a bigger margin than they have, so we didn't have to worry about it as much. They need everybody, so these assholes think they can crowbar, Johnson into doing what they want. But the reality is with a mild head fake, Dems helped pass a normal budget, the Biden budget, under Johnson without the help from these idiots, so it doesn't matter.
We're going to be watching you, Mike Johnson. So Johnson's sigh of relief might be a...
Okay, I want to see the Carville part on this, though. I like Jen, but you know, I'm not here to comment on her whole segment and her breakdown. She brings him in moments away. They're trying to get him. We don't know where he is. I'm sorry, I was too busy moving a porch chair into the kitchen.
I want to start with some of the lessons in your piece because it was very specific. And I know you want people to kind of pull from it what they may pull from it. But one of the things you talk about is how to oppose policies that the Republicans are putting forward or put them on their back heels, I guess, by forcing them to vote against things that are popular. How do you do that in the minority for people who are at home and haven't worked in the business of politics or Washington? How can they exactly do that?
What I think the Democrats should focus on a limited number of things that have the following criteria. They must be massively popular all across the Democratic Party. Secondly, they must be massively popular all across the United States among Republicans, independents, and everybody else. And third, it has to be something the Republicans can't be for. So they can't be for raising the minimum wage because the people won't let them. The financiers won't let them. The billionaires won't let them. They can't be for having protections for women in Roe v. Wade because that's part of who they are. Then they can't be for doing away with tax cuts for people who make over $400,000 a year and take that money and use it to help young people buy or rent a home. This is 75% popularity stuff. All we have to do is be there and hammer it home. And like I say, it's three things: massively popular all across the party, massively popular all across the country, and the Republicans can't be for it. Ram it home. Ram it home.
I like ram it home. It's a bumper sticker right there. Okay, let me ask you, because some of this is about what we've learned over the last couple of weeks.
I would advise putting "ram it home" on your bumper sticker. The person in traffic behind you might road rage and get the wrong idea.
And how to navigate what a Republican-led Congress under Speaker Mike Johnson looks like. What I just went through what I learned. What did you learn from watching the speakers vote and watching the last couple of weeks with Elon Musk and Trump and everything that happened?
I learned more in the 5 minutes after the vote than I ever want to know, where Mike Johnson stood in the well of the House and attributed a prayer to Thomas Jefferson, which is a bald-faced lie, okay? A bald-faced lie. So they started with a lie, they're going to continue to lie, and they're going to end with a lie. So let's be very forceful and let's be very upfront here. And the billionaire class in this country has exercised such power that they got rid of the cartoonists at the Washington Post. Okay, where they're having editorial sway over a cartoon that runs. I grew up with Conrad and Erbach. I studied Thomas Nash. What David Shipley, what happened under his watch is a disgrace to journalism in America. I don't know how that guy could possibly get up in the morning.
She quit, to be clear. She quit, and she made a statement because she
quit because they let her quit, because they wouldn't run a cartoon.
That's right.
I don't blame her for quitting, all right? Well, if you're a journalist, if they sit here at MSNBC and tell you you can't say anything bad about the Trump tax cuts because executives might get them, you're going to walk out the door.
That's right. Well, no one's telling me that, fortunately. I can trash the tax cuts as much. Let me ask you, let me just go back to Congress, because this is an interesting part, and I think it doesn't get enough attention about how they can be part of the opposition. Kristen Welker this morning actually asked
Kristen Welker.
Senator Chuck Schumer about your op-ed. He seemed to agree with you. He gave his thoughts on what Democrats can do differently on the economy moving forward, which I think everybody's thinking about. I want to play that and talk about it with you.
We talked about the mechanics of the legislation and the details of the legislation, and we really didn't show the kind of empathy and concern to average, or show enough of it, to average working families. So what we're going to do is spend a lot of time talking to working families, showing them how much we care about them, and not just talk about legislation, but talk about the conditions that have made so many working families worried about.
Jesus Christ, even just working families. We're the working families, and working families were, okay, first of all, the kids don't work, they go to school. And the working families, what you mean is a man and a woman, both of them have, in most cases, if you're talking in these terms, you're talking about like the dad and the mom both work. which is like almost everybody. Oh, Twisted Stepsister, absolutely. I consider Super Chats, Venmos, everything on this, these are tips because none of you pay me a salary. I only, it's like, if this show was me busking on a corner with a guitar playing, and with a case open and people threw change into it, is that a salary or is that a tip? Thanks for the music. Here's a tip. You don't have to pay. Any money, I think any money you don't have to pay, but you give to the person you're getting the service from is a tip. So this show is 100% tips, baby. 100% tips. Yeah, tips are always, yes, thank you, Cosmic Rose. Tips are never expected, but always appreciated. You can tip me at Venmo and PayPal and Cash App, and you can gift a sub on Twitch. That would be a tip in its own way. Every little bit helps. Patreon, Although Patreon's the closest thing to like salary. I think that's the only thing. But even then, they could stop anytime they want, It's like every month. So do I claim it? Well, that's the weird part. I don't know. I'd have to because I get it digitally. I don't get it, It's kind of like when you get tips when somebody uses a card versus money they leave on the table. Oh, or the dresser. What are you guys doing? So, thank you. I will check my Venmo. Thank you. Oh, Leslie, thank you so much. I'm just trying to make your day better and keep you informed and without the layer of anxiety everybody else seems to be like, well, it's welcome to the news. Now get ready to feel bad. I'm like, I don't play that game.
Their futures.
That sounds pretty good to me. We'll see how it's implemented. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think there's always a reason I kind of have some affection for Senator Schumer. And what he is he understands on the fly that we're not communicating, but we need benchmarks to tell people we care about them. Hey, America needs a raise. Let's raise this thing to $15 an hour. Workers are getting the short end of the stick here. Let's ask these billionaires to pay the tax rate that they paid during the most prosperous era in the United States, the 1990s. And contribute to young people having a future in this country. Let's protect a pregnant woman that works at the Walmart in Ponchatoula, Louisiana, who already has 2 kids and would have an economic and social burden that is unimaginable.
Especially if it comes out looking a little bit like a Cajun political operative that might have been, wanted to be a little too greeted, if you know what I'm saying.
Let's stand up for these people. Let's show these people that we stand up for them. And by the way, it's not just them. Everybody in America wants working people to make some more money than they do. Everybody in America wants the rich to pay their fair share.
Yep.
I say everybody. That's an exaggeration. Most Americans. And most.
See, even he's doing it. Just say everybody. And if here's the trick. And this is a really good. I don't know if I'm going to give away all my rhetorical argument tricks, but it's useful, I think, for you guys to know. When you say everybody, but I don't mean everybody in those kind of situations. I make jokes that that those kind of big grasping things are very hilarious when they're used poorly. But when you're saying nobody wants everybody wants people to have a living wage or whatever. There will be 2 people that will say, no, they don't. One half of them, one half of the people who say, no, they don't, is talking about the people who want to stop that from happening. They are saying, I do, but they don't, right? When they say, not everybody. But the other people who say, not everybody, they mean them. They would have to mean them. And then they have to explain why. And they might have what they think is a good reason, but now they have to go on the record. That's what you want. It's like why when I'm talking about, a rather large financial difference or a statistical difference or whatever, I sometimes as a strategy on purpose, when I'm spitballing, let's say we don't know what the exact number is, but the closest number we've seen is 17% of something. I'll say 15%. If I'm saying, it's grown a lot. It's grown 15%, and it's actually grown 17%. So when I'm corrected by the side that doesn't like what I'm talking about, I'll go, well, let's look it up. Oh shit, I missed by 2 points. It's even better than I thought. It's a rhetorical trick.
Americans want to give women and families the protection that they had under Roe v. Wade. This is not easy, people. This is really pretty simple, and we just have to accentuate this and drive it home.
Let me ask you about something I've been thinking a lot about. I mean, one of the things you write in your piece, and this struck my mind, got me thinking too, is to Democratic presidential hopefuls, your auditions for 2028 should be based on two things. One, how authentic you are in the economy, and two, how well you deliver it on a podcast. Now, the mechanisms and delivery mechanisms, I think, is a really important question.
By the way, hi, I'm Hal Sparks. I have a podcast called the Hal Sparks Podcast, Megaworldwide. You can get it wherever your podcasts are found.
But I want to ask you about the other piece, because one of the things that strikes me sometimes about Democrats is that they talk in consultant DC speak, right? That it becomes like poll-tested language that people are reading off of. How do you break people of that? Or do people just have to do it themselves?
Well, I think the best way to, is they say in the Marine Corps that there's three ways to lead: by example, and by example. And I think people like you, who have considerable experience in this, who was spokesperson for the White House, by doing this, or maybe somebody like me, who people say, well, that guy's kind of been around a long time, maybe we should listen to him, is don't.
Or that Hal Sparks fellow who, is so right, and when we don't listen to him, we get in a heap of trouble.
Talk in that jargonistic language.
I'm gonna barbecue your ass in molasses. Sorry, back. Say that.
Listen to him. Is don't talk in that jargonistic language. If you remember during the 92 campaign when I said the economy's stupid, I was talking to all of the geniuses in the campaign. And I was telling them, who were all more educated and smarter than I was, don't be too smart here, okay? Let's just be authentic and to the point. So I think people like you and I can bring this home by example, and don't use that idiotic NPR jargon when you're talking to voters.
Yep, pretty much nails it. I would argue, chat room, that this applies to a lot of stuff. And a lot of people, when they think they're being effective communicators, I'll just announce your run and let's get you on some shows based on that. I think it's a good idea, Robin Top. I think I'm going to wait until like the day after Trump's sworn in, and then I'll officially announce that I'm running. Earliest campaign ever. I'm going to start gathering signatures. I don't know what some of the rules are. You have to do it within a certain time of the election, but we'll see. I figure it's going to take me longer because I don't have big money donors. So I figure what I don't have is money. What I do have is time. So I'll just announce that early or whatever. Look, there's a lot of weird people that show up on the ballot sometimes, and you're like, who the fuck is this guy? If they can do it, so can I. But what I would say in terms of this, the communication and the jargon and all that, is that there are only two ways. There are two reasons primarily that people use that kind of language. One is they truly believe that everyone already understands and is already on board, and so they are effectively preaching to the choir, using effectively gang language or religious language or cult language or whatever you want to call it, and they get it. That's why. And Trump has a problem with that, because that's when he starts explaining what MAGA means, they run into the same wall with some of their people too, because obviously a bunch of these people don't think H-1B visas are America first, so they've got their own problems over there. Let's not pretend that they're just running away with it and they've mastered this. They fucking have not. So the key is that when we're discussing these things, when we're talking about these things, that we do not allow the activist or slacktivist class or the groups that you're talking to that have a specific jargon point themselves to dictate how you talk about something. And all it should do is sharpen your ability to communicate. I should be able to explain my tax policy or my infrastructure plan or my belief about education and how we should better our public schools without having to dovetail that message to every other little group. And if certain groups, because they're so used to talking in cult slang or whatever, have a difficult time processing it if you don't use their magic words, then that just means you have to be an even better communicator. I would argue that one of the reasons why people look for a good orator in a president most of the time, obviously not this time, but most of the time, is because that person has to have the skill to speak to many different groups as if they are using their own way of speaking and still be understood. I don't have to dovetail my language to you and use the jargon you're comfortable with just for you to understand that I'm a good person, I have a good solution, and I really believe in it, and I think I can implement it. Does that make sense? And I think that's one of the problems that we have currently. And then, and what happens is that NPR jargon shit that he's talking about is where the people around Donald Trump, his billionaire buddies and his billionaire adjacent buddies like Steve Bannon, decry elites while hanging out with elites, but talk like fucking Okies. That's the trick. Yes, Obama was a great communicator in that regard and crossed over to a lot of people because he was charming and was able to speak to these things, but wasn't, there was also an aspect to the fact that he was black gave him an automatic talking pass with a certain segment of the Democratic Party. What does jargon mean? Jargon is wording specific to a particular group. Think, you can have business jargon, you can like shorthand language that people in an inside group use, but that people outside of that group would not understand. Does that make sense? I am the infamous El Guapo. For some of us, reading is our El Guapo. For others, public speaking might be our El Guapo. In our case, El Guapo is a big Mexican warlord who wants to kill us all. But still, all right. Yes, Carville's a Dem strategist. His wife Mary is a GOP strategist. That is correct. So there also has to be a way to address, and again, this is why I think voter turnout when your vote isn't postmated to you drop back down to pre-2020 levels per capita, anyways. Is this insistence on jargon from within groups, and I guess pronouns would be the biggest, most egregious version of things. I would also argue that in a similar notion, the idea that we allowed Republicans to seize the word freedom when they want to curtail everyone's freedoms is it's hilariously ironic. So, but when it comes to a normal conversation about people's pronouns and you should be deferential to them, and that shouldn't be a problem. It really isn't a problem. It really shouldn't be a problem. And most of the time when someone's trans and they're attempting to pass or they are passing, and you recognize that, you go, I'll give you, where was it? Oh, CES. I went to CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, and there was clearly a trans woman working at the convention center, sending people. I had a thing with my badge, so I had to go through registration and go to another line or whatever, and she helped me go to my line or whatever. She was like that tall, a husky, but clearly trans. And I have no problem referring to her as she. I have no problem with her using the bathroom she needs to, any of that stuff. I do have a problem, and this is, I'm curious where this, we can have this conversation. This is because it's an exemplary conversation about other stuff. I do have a problem with, say, the non-binary crowd believing that flexible pronouns are their prerogative, and other people have to acquiesce to them at your whim, and that should allow you to use whatever facilities and dress however you want, and that dictates it. And it's in the same way that trans people who are clearly, whether it's biological or psychological or spiritual, whatever your belief in that path is has nothing to do with being non-binary. As a matter of fact, it is going from one side of the binary to another side of the binary. And the language of some of the non-binary crowd and this doesn't even I wouldn't even go towards addressing whether non-binary is a real or a not real thing. I would say this is about communication. That the way that a lot of non-binary activists took over trans spaces and argued against the existence of gender norms or gender-specific behavior or any of that stuff created a situation where trans people were basically being denied to their face their existence. Basically, because if I'm being a biological male has no meaning, then being a trans male has no meaning either. Does that make sense? And the thing about being a biological male is I don't have any issues in society worldwide. If I'm overseas and I'm in a car accident and they cut my pants off and my shirt off, they're going to go and see my Adam's apple and my crank. This is a male. There's no variance in this. I will not endure any unconscious discrimination based on my physical person the way a trans man would. Right? And all the physical and medical limitations in that circumstance. Right? So when a non-binary person would say it doesn't matter, these don't exist, I don't believe in either, well then you're basically saying that not only do biological men and women not have any valid identity based on their biological sex, which would be the anchor for their identity, nor do trans women or trans men have an anchor for their identity in their belief or their heartfelt feeling about their gender expression. Does that make sense? And so the nullification we gave the irony that most people think we placated trans people more in this, and the reality is we didn't. We placated the idea that trans is a malleable, puffy mess that does not have a relatively predictable arc, that the mass, you got 0.05% of the populace that have the vast majority of that 0.05% are uniform in their cross-expression from their birth sex to their gender, their gender of expression. And by the way, swins and whales, some of us don't identify with sex or gender at all. That doesn't matter, though, because that materially nulls you out in this circumstance. If you don't, then you can use the bathroom that's biologically more fit to you, like everybody else does, and you can dress however you want. That's not what we're talking about. Trans is a whole other thing, in the same way that biological sex is a whole other thing. And denying both exists because it shouldn't matter in some sort of like communal tent lifestyle idea is fine if you want to go live in a communal tent. Okay, here's what happened. During the entire process, there was so much room given to those who were vacillating between the LGBT fence posts and the straight world and gender neutrality for people who had to use a gender neutral bathroom because they were trans, versus if someone's truly gender neutral, what do they care? They can just use the one. What's stopping you from using, if you're born with biological parts as a male or a female, then use those bathrooms. If you're truly gender neutral, it shouldn't even come up. Right? But it didn't. It became a thing about crossing over them, that it became that if I feel like my identity goes one way or another, then I can seize on that. And it undermined the very shaky ground that trans people already find themselves in. In fact, use the word biology is wrong. No, it is not. No. We don't have a biological anchor for trans yet. We may one day, and I hope so. The question is, some people push back on that for the idea that we might try to find a material cure for it and therefore treat it as a disease as opposed to, circumstance, right? The point I'm trying to make is the non-binary crowd seized more of the conversation away from trans people, and in acquiescing to the kind of murky world of it and how loud they were over the last couple of years. And porta potties don't count because you're in there alone, unless you're lucky. I don't know, why would that be lucky? Literally, there's nothing. Nobody rendezvous at a porta potty forget it. I went to Lollapalooza too quickly. So I'm talking about the word people use biology incorrectly. I perhaps so. Point I'm trying to make is, in taking care of trans people who genuinely have a material issue about the bathrooms they're going to go into and use, their safety concerns, their life concerns as far as not being able to be fired and all that, that conversation was seized by a lot of people that are not genuine. And I'm not just talking about the non-binary people. I would talk about like in the UK, they had several rapists, male straight rapists, who, because the law is so loose in British law, you can simply claim that you feel like you're a woman. You have no obligation to transition. You have no obligation to even present. You can simply state it, and that was the rule. And so several of them got put in women's prisons and sexually assaulted other women there. That shouldn't be on the back of trans people, right? That should not be a burden trans people have, because the vast majority of heterogeneous straight people who of a biological sex identity can't get their act together to recognize that there are Donald Trumps and Jeffrey Epsteins and Harvey Weinsteins and Bill Cosbys of the world out there. And you can't just be slapdash with the rules because you're afraid of offending people because of the bad people who will take advantage of them. And you were going to also hope that the people who are involved in this would also take equal care and understanding. We gotta have a set rule around this, not because of you, but because of all the people who will take advantage of it. This is, and it's funny because it's very similar. Where the fuck was it? So one of these rich assholes that showed up at Mar-a-Lago. No, who was it? Okay, it was this. There's this guy who does these. It's this fucking ranch dude who does like these. He's like the cowboy version of Jordan Peterson. I saw this thing about him a little bit ago. It's what is the fucking guy's show? Anyways, he's one of, like, they call it like grandpa vlogs or whatever. And so this guy does this. He sits in a chair and pontificates about being a man. And he talked about how recently he took a drive down to Texas to visit some family, and they had a new grandbaby and all this. And he smokes a cigar and he's got a big beard and he works on a horse farm and teaches classes. And he's become one of these like surrogate fathers for all these incel fucks on the internet. And nothing against him particularly, but he had this one line that he was talking about. He goes, we drove down there. He goes, I don't tend to fly anymore because I don't like to be treated like cattle. And I was like, I was almost kind of like with him on some of the stuff he was talking about until he got to that point. And I was like, cattle? Fuck you talk, because why? Because you have to stand in line? Because it's too much? We don't want people just charging in a horde towards their plane? Sorry, you're being treated like cattle because you have to stand in line orderly with other people because there's a lot of them and there's a bottleneck at TSA? Why is that treating you like cattle? And why is it about you? This motherfucker wants first of all, they want the Muslims driven out of the country. So, because I guess they're the only problem, even though fucking think of all the cracker assholes who have the fucking guns, pardon my French, that are, trying to bring guns through the airport. I'm quoting, by the way. This idea that he should have special treatment and get to the front of the line and hey, it's me. I should be able to do whatever the fuck I want. Not all these other strangers. I shouldn't be treated like these guys are cattle because they're standing in line and they're showing their ID and they're getting on a plane because it's dangerous and flying is hard and there are bombers out there and fucking blah, blah, blah. Because he doesn't want to just behave normally, that means he's being treated like cattle. Like the ego involved in that, if you think about it, is just pitiful. Well, there's a similarity to that as well. Right? There's a similarity in this conversation around the non-binary crowd or the alleged trans crowd. And again, the problem with self-identification in the trans world is that anybody can say they are. That's why what's her name called herself identified as an attack helicopter, and everybody could just make it up because the rules were so loose. And in many ways, having rules that loose speaks to your disbelief in the thing itself. It's just like, I don't know, just let them do whatever. It's not going to matter. There's only this many of them. Fuck them, right? But the problem isn't them. And then they have to carry the fucking burden of every psycho asshole. Again, BTK. Well, here, I'll show you a picture. Hold on. Yeah, so BTK used to send pictures. He sent them to the cops, showing himself in a dress with this mask on and this hair, and he would masturbate wearing the outfit, and he would sort of self-tie himself up. That's him. He checked a lot of the boxes in the modern parlance that would make him trans or any of these other things by just talking about it. And if this had happened now, he'd probably taken advantage of it. He's not. But he would have said he was. Does that make sense? Why should that be trans people's problems? And why can't the majority of people who are dealing with these kind of things have an honest discussion about this stuff, because we don't want people like this taking advantage of laws that are made to make trans people's lives better. I hope that's clear. It's a big murky thing. Okay, that's complexity. That's why I'm part of the complexity caucus, right? Somebody, old school Calabrian Catholic man, E.V. Saint says in there. Okay, that's another example. By shuffling around Catholic priests that are guilty of sexual assault, which is a minority of Catholic priests, by shuffling those people around and hiding them, what happened? The entirety of the priesthood got painted with pedophilia. Being a Catholic priest became synonymous with being a pedophile. Right? It's a running gag. It's a baseline hack premise. You could just say, like a Catholic priest. Never mind the fact that there are, tens of thousands of them over the years in the modern era. But if you think about Catholic priests, you immediately attach them to that behavior. Why? Because the Catholic Church, in an effort to not deal with the reality of it within their ranks, refused to broom the rest of them out, and all the other Catholic priests get blanket charged with this shit because of a few, who I would argue not real Catholic priests. Predatory assholes who found a window, lied to themselves and others so they could get in a position of power, and then took advantage of it. They certainly weren't Catholic priests or living up to the standard of what a Catholic priest should be while they were doing it. They weren't celibate, right? I think once you cross that line, you don't qualify as a priest anymore, right? Is that the fault of all Catholic priests? I would argue it's the archdiocese of those areas that covered for it. Maybe they themselves were in on that kind of shit. But it's not the fault of the rest of the priests who believe what they believe and were really doing some good or trying to teach some things or any of that stuff. Are Christian pastors all on the hook for how full of shit, I don't know, the mega church pastors are? Kenneth Copeland and that crowd. Sorry, you're citing one case to justify laws which will always be used to target straight people, which will always lead to trans people being harmed because trans people statistically are more likely to be victims of crime in the first place. Are you talking to me or are you talking to somebody else, Slayer Chick? I'm not. I'm trying to be more protective of trans people and not get the entire laws kicked off the books because people blame them. There are a myriad of issues where this is true, where this becomes a factor. And that's why we can't be, police, great example. 17,968, I think is the number, 678, somewhere around there. Okay. So almost 18,000 police departments of different types in the United States. 1 billion interactions between police and the public, from full-on raids to traffic stops a year. 1 billion a year in the United States. 1 billion. Fewer than 6 unarmed shootings have happened, many of which had mitigating circumstances in them. Some of them were straight up criminal. And most of the time, we've seen, because of public pressure, and rightly so, these people go to jail. But the ACAB guys don't have any problem throwing that shit around. And how is that any different from Republicans looking at a guy who lies and says he's trans so he can be transferred to a women's prison in England as a way to paint all trans people in the United States as predators? What's the difference morally? I would argue there is none. Hale, did I tell you some mini kiss last weekend? It's kind of awesome. It's a great show. Are you guys, by the way, let me also back up and go this. At any time during this whole conversation, which I grant you touches on a lot of grounded wires in this conversation, do any of you get the idea that I somehow don't believe trans people exist or are real, shouldn't have the right to live their lives, not be fired, use the bathroom that they best associate with themselves, should be safe? Any of you believe any of that? In how I've talked about this, right? With the depth I'm trying to talk about it, I would argue, in my way of thinking anyways, that I am more caring about it than people who are simply slapdash with it. Not just on the right, where they paint everybody with a broad brush, but also on the Democratic side. Because I don't believe that a rapist who self-identifies as a woman who's clearly lying should have the same rights and protections as a trans woman who's trying to live their life and who has harmed no one. And I don't think laws to protect that trans woman should be scrubbed from the books simply because we were too weak-kneed to thread the law in such a way that protects vulnerable women from sexual assault by male straight predators. We're too scared to go after that because of the slacktivists attacking us or appearing too Trumpian or whatever he was talking about. We got to worry about people thinking they're going to be on the Trump side, whatever. It's too important. Trans people's lives are too important to leave it to just kind of like, well, whatever they want to call themselves, fuck it. Because we all know there are a billion fucking people on this planet. How does this translate into law? It's a great idea, right, said Rob. Well, one of the things is that you, if you're gonna have, you have to protect people from being assaulted for being trans, because that primary thing is, as a minority group, they should be protected under, I believe, I don't know if it's Title IX currently, but the idea that somebody, sexual identity should be a protected class. Therefore, if somebody wants to have what is effectively a T on their license, because you can't donate a uterus if you don't have one, and if you're going to be an organ donor on your license, the fact that you've perished and you're physically got male organs, as in male and female, as in biological sex organs, that will matter to how they both treat you and do these things. So being able to recognize that somebody's got a T on their license would be one of the ways you do that. So that if somebody is, there's some Karen freaks out and goes after somebody in a bathroom, that person could go, here's my ID. And the officer could see this is a person who is trans and committing their life to being trans. This isn't just a flippant decision. They haven't just used it as an excuse. They're not violating the law. And to do that should be fairly easy to do. There should be a mechanical protection for people who are trans. Good point, Hal, but it will also invite harassment from cops and any bar staff. It may, but it legitimizes that person. The social part of it has to be society's catch-up. But you need to focus on the material things you could protect someone with. Right? That's the important thing. The other thing, too, is that I think if you are a registered sex offender, it should be on your driver's license or your ID. If you are arrested for any of those things and you have that, it should be on there. So even if you are trying to manipulate these things and you are doing your level best to do this, if you're a sexual predator previously and you've been busted for it, you can just be broomed from a private area where people have their genitals exposed like a bathroom, toot sweet, if there's ever a problem, trans or not. So the point I'm trying to make is that that's a really complicated issue. I'm trying to hit on all the aspects of it. And by avoiding talking about it for fear of, causing anxiety and fear in trans people or being afraid of being, called a predator or some bullshit by the right, I think a lot of politicians get kind of frozen. And there won't be a perfect solution for it because people aren't perfect. It's a murky world. And until we have a biological standard that says, oh, we see, you have the gene for being trans. Right? Until that's a thing, we will have to establish standards to protect people who are trans from exploitation and protect, vulnerable people of all sorts from sexual predators who will take advantage of loose things in the law. It's why there's that person who calls themselves like trans. It's like the trans age person, the guy who thinks he's a 6-year-old, right? Have you seen this? Seen the guy who likes to be raised by a family and he's declared himself trans age because he considers himself a toddler and so he identifies as a toddler. Like, this is one of the ridiculous things they bat around. Let me start by just saying that I find that absurd and form of mental illness because time is time and hormonal growth is hormonal growth. That said, the idea that this guy could say, I say it so that's enough. Therefore, I should be able to play around other children unsupervised because I'm their same age is absurd. Now, is that the problem of toddlers? Does the T in LGBT now has to be toddlers? Are toddlers on the hook for some adult male who's bullshitting about that? Of course not. And the rule's set up to go, no, what a real toddler is somebody who's less than 5 years old, and I would argue less than 3 and still having trouble walking. So, no, once you've gone through, once you pass those years, even if you're 9, you don't qualify as a toddler anymore, much less 47. It's dumb. But it's a great example of how when words don't mean anything, then anybody can take advantage of them. So legitimizing trans people and offering them a situation where they can be protected and guaranteeing, their safety. And then you bring society along. Because again, gay marriage didn't have to pass because everybody liked it. It stood on its own, I believe, on a legal basis. Right? That legally there's no reason why two people shouldn't be able to bond together if they're consenting adults. Just because one's, they're both male or both female or whatever. That there's no material reason why they shouldn't have the same tax breaks if they're going to stay together, if they're going to raise children together, even if they're not theirs. Because if a straight couple can adopt, then so can a gay couple, and obviously they can be good parents. And unless you can prove that they just magically can't, which there's obviously no evidence of that. That on the matter of gay marriage, it's cut and dry, whether you are for it or not, right? So, in the case of these situations, I would rather get the material, and then people can come along later. They can either be for it or upset by it. It doesn't really matter. Once the legal protections are there, people can scowl all the fuck they want. But if they can't legally keep you out of the hospital room when your partner's dying, right? Who gives a shit what they think? You can't control people's social stuff. That's why I actually have never considered myself a social justice warrior, if you want to talk about fucking jargon while we're at it. First of all, there is no social justice. There's justice. Someone has been materially wronged and you can materially undo it. Social justice, meaning treatment. Well, I can act like I care about you, but that doesn't mean I actually do. You can't make someone socially acceptable of you, socially accepting of you, or even socially acceptable to yourself, right? And the idea that everybody should be judged on their innate human worth. Yeah, tell me that the next time a bunch of maggots are marching down your street, or you know, look, or the Klan walks down the street and everybody's going, look, they're human beings. Of course not. They're, you know, it's like when we play with the word respect. A lot of people are like, everybody deserves, human beings deserve respect. What you mean is politeness, deferential politeness. You're not going to attack them physically or verbally without knowing who they are. That's what you're talking about when you mean respect. You don't mean earned respect. You don't mean the reverential form of respect. I truly respect that person because time and time again they have shown themselves to be a decent human. I respect Jimmy Carter, and I also respect your personal space. They are two totally different circumstances. Does that make sense? I'll just bring up that there has to be a way to speak about complex issues. They're just getting away with sloganizing politics. Exactly. And we fall for it. Police tortured Jesus to death? What are you talking about? They were soldiers, Karate Joe. They weren't police. They didn't have police back then. That's silliness. The trick isn't so much that we should be able to talk about complex issues, because I do think we have a moral obligation. Simple issues don't require a lot of discussion, do they? The problem is they try to oversimplify complex issues and get away from, like, jettison all the issues that have to be dealt with. And we can't fear our own activist class in this process. And part of it goes to that whole thing I've said about maybe some of these people who care very much about this stuff just suck at communication. They think they're great because they can gather a crowd and have the crowd go, yeah. But that doesn't mean you're doing, that just means you've managed to find the choir. You found your Greek chorus of people who will yell along with you. That doesn't mean you're a great orator. Rounding up, being like fucking, whatever, the leader, the police officer in Young Frankenstein, a riot is an ugly thing. And I think it is about time we had one. Hal, do you have a police courtesy card? No, I do not. I don't know what that is. Does that mean they give you a pass or something? No, clearly not. I've been courteous when pulled over, if that's what you mean. But what I would say is there are those who care about an issue who can do just as much damage to that issue as the people against it, if not more, if they're so busy backbiting each other. I hate that for leftists, moderates are a bigger enemy than conservatives, and moderates like Hal, leftists are a bigger enemy than conservatives. No. I don't think leftists are a bigger enemy than conservatives by any stretch. I think they can do more damage. That's different. Does that make sense? I'm not worried about, it's an important distinction. Words matter. So I hate that for leftists, and also define leftists for me. Moderates are a bigger enemy than conservatives, and to Hal, leftists are a bigger enemy than conservatives. No. Okay. No, they aren't. I don't have to worry about conservatives because I can disagree with their methodology and their argument whole cloth. And they can't undermine my ethical or moral belief or pretend that I'm not caring about the things that I care about the way some people that are allegedly on my side would. Does that make sense? Problem is there are people in power who always put trans people in danger. They don't care what things you put in place to try and help the concerns. Yeah, but that doesn't mean you stop. That's like saying there will always be murderers out there, Carrie. So why do we even have laws against murder? People are still going to murder. Well, because every murder you catch, most of the time they would have killed somebody else if they hadn't been stopped. Oh, this is a great way to solve my problems. And again, you don't like the DSA, it seems. Oh, the Democratic Socialists of America? I mean, I don't know why I would even care about them. I mean, I think the concept's farcical. I don't have anything personally against them. Right, said Rob. Honestly, I don't. He's making the point that I seemingly don't like the Democratic Socialists of America. I think they're absurd. That's different. I don't morally have a problem with them. I think a lot of them may mean well. That's different. So I have I'm just committed to having full conversations about this stuff. And I find that some people, especially the ones that can slap a label on something like the DSA or groups like them, and I'm not singling them out, have a tendency to oversimplify. You said they helped Trump in the past. Well, they do. I mean, by undercutting Democrats, and again, it's a farce. Like you'd have to point out a particular person rather than the organization as a whole, because I don't know that they have a big play out there. But just not a fan. I think it's silly. Socialism is not democratic by its very nature. And once it is, what you have is democratic taxation, which is what we have in this country. And what they're trying to do is rehab the word socialist by attaching it to democratic taxation, which is the essence of the country. And so, it's a wash for me. So, yeah, and thanks for the bits, guys. Thanks for the hype train. And other things. And Colleen said, I just cut my hair really short. It was then I already noticed people reacting differently. Is she gay? Does she have an illness? I don't care, but it's real. Colleen, yeah, absolutely. People will make that decision about you. Look at all the people who, because I have long hair, like the maggots that will come on here, who are allegedly, by the way, to the person, deeply Christian, right? This is what they're selling. You ever seen Christ with a buzz cut? Not a once. But I have long hair, and it's like, hello, ladies, like that kind of shit. It's weird, but it's definitely, an unshakable position for them. It's hilarious. I agree, Remo. But it's important to not be afraid of these conversations. And I do have a problem. Probably my biggest problem with groups like the DSA or the Squad or anybody who's quote unquote a leftist. And again, maybe we can do this because you guys can help me with this because I've been struggling with this a bit lately because I've really been thinking like there's so much overlap between the far left and the far right, as they call themselves, and the authoritarian nature of both groups, and they're both kind of sucking up to. It's so quick to suck up to Trump, be it TYT or Jimmy Dore or any, like just Putin apologists across the board, agreeing with Tucker Carlson and shit like that. Super easy. So I have to believe that there's that separation that made it horseshoe theory is gone, and it's just a fucking dial at this point. You just got to find their position. So whatever, 11 o'clock to 2 a.m. That's the time of the day when these fucks overlap. But left, what do you mean? Because Democrat, obviously, you ask a person who defines himself as a leftist, Democrat will not be the first word. And an extremist, I hear what you're saying when you say extremist, but what does you can be extremely just about anything. Extreme what? Yeah, it's dial theory. I like that. It's sundial theory. So people just can't stand you being gorgeous. That's true. I know. That's the thing. I'm a Democrat as well, and my politics are very well spoken for, largely in the platform of the Democratic Party. There's some changes I would make. And again, there's some slave to language stuff that I don't like. But overall, the ethics of it I enjoy. Democrats are central, centrists. Radical moderates that's not what leftists are, though. That's not what you mean. In all seriousness, how would you define a leftist in terms of, policies they believe in? Are they all Marxist, Leninist, communists? Does leftist mean the goal is communism? Right? Left to what exactly? Well, you know what I mean. We all know what we're talking about. I just want to see how the definition lands. Right? Ultra radical centrist. Is that what you are? Anti-Zion manifest destiny. And again, to me, Zionism means you think Israel has a right to exist. So I'm clearly a Zionist in that regard. There's some people who think Zionist means that Israel's only for Jews, and if that's the case, then there aren't any Zionists in the country, but for a few, like, I guess, hardcore rabbis or something. Hard to say. Okay, yeah. Not what you guys are. I don't mean what you guys are, but I mean what does acceptance? That's lovely, but as a Democrat, I would say I stand for Democrat. Some countries left does mean communist, right? I would agree. I think that's certainly where it meant to be. Now, I have a reason for asking this too, beyond just this. In your last breath, you criticized the parsing of language. The parsing of language. No, I'm trying to. That's what I'm trying to get to the point of the definition of this word, because people use it as a standard, like a stake in the ground. I am this. So what does it mean? That's my question. Because a moderate to me would be somebody who thinks about certain ideas, and the only thing that makes you a moderate is not the ideas themselves, but who has laid claim to them. The right has somehow claimed the border. The left has somehow claimed wages. Let's just pick those, okay? That doesn't mean they own them. It just means they claim them. And if you go, well, I'm for... I don't know if I'm for a $15 minimum wage, but 12 sounds good, and it's a moderate. I feel like we should move in one direction, or whatever. Rights would say that you lean left on that issue, and then the other, whatever other, parallel, kind of the border. Let's say you believe in, stronger asylum standards. Or something, but you still believe that asylum should exist. And people on the, that are further to your left would believe that you are seizing on a thing to the right. Now, the only reason you think you're left or right on those issues is because the left or the right has seized those issues as their very own. It doesn't intrinsically make them left or right. And sometimes it happens to things that shouldn't, like infrastructure. Does anybody think infrastructure should be a partisan issue? Like, Democrats are pro-infrastructure, Republicans are against it. It should be, moderate ultimately should mean that you're, well, never mind. Nonpartisan issues should be the purview of everyone. You argue the merits of it, right? But nobody is on board with just like, this is something we believe in and you fuckers are against it, right? Now, as people politicize these things or continue to blow up these things in a political sense, they tend to have more weight to the left or the right because either vast majority of that group, the right or the left, agrees with it, and then the other side, you might lose some support simply because they associate it with the right. So the right, let's say, the left comes out. The Democrats specifically, not the left, but the Democrats come out and say, we need infrastructure, and some Republicans are like, of course we do. But some Republicans are like, fuck, the Democrats are for infrastructure. That means we can't be for it. That makes a nonpartisan issue partisan. That doesn't automatically make a person who is for infrastructure all of a sudden a moderate that leans left, because the right has decided that infrastructure is not their issue, it's the other side. Does that make sense? That would be an exonym. That would be a label put on you by someone else's decisions. This is getting very complicated, but I love it. Yeah, Billy Joe's saying problem is that every issue is partisan now. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so where is it? There it is. Problem is that every issue is partisan now. It isn't, though. It's claimed by one side or the other, but a lot of times they don't own it. There are more famous, well-known, high-level trans activists on the right than there are on the left. Specifically, Blair White and Caitlyn Jenner, I would say, as silly as they may be. Right? So what's the right part of what they're doing? Clearly, the Republicans are fighting against their life and livelihood. KG Douglas says they're terrible. Maybe so, but you get my point. We know who they are. They got namesake out of this shit. And partly it's because they're, seemingly hypocritical or nuts. Right? But I would argue, why would trans issues, which are either a psychological or medical definitional issue, why did they become a partisan issue at all? I think primarily bigotry. On the right, there's obviously in the Republican Party, let's be very distinct. By and large, there's definitely some everywhere, but in the Republican Party, there's by and large an anti-gay stint that has to do with daddy issues or some other shit that they're going through. I'm not one, so you'll have to ask them. But apparently they get skeeved out very easily, and that worries them. And so anything that's outside the norm of sexuality, it is either really disgusting or really exciting to them. Like, I don't know what, and again, I'm not one, so I can't answer to the deeper psychological aspect of it. Yeah, they have a very xenophobic bent. They have a fear of the other. That's right. So that's probably primarily where it came from. But where did it become a talking point back and forth that swayed an election? Well, it had to do with Democrats, by and large, afraid of what they thought were their far left, and this was where the definitional thing comes from, the far left of their party, holding them to a standard which was confusing and off-putting to the general public. Because it was hard, because even they couldn't articulate the point. It was right, we were getting to the point where people were understanding pronouns. There was a whole raging, dumpster fire of people going, I change my pronouns every hour on the hour, and it's up to me what they are, and if you get them wrong, I'm going to, file a report with HR against you, that kind of thing. And there were enough of those people online that it mucked up the whole conversation. Again, none of this is trans people's fault. These bullshitters and loudmouths and social media flex and bots and fake accounts making taking a very complex issue when everybody else is refusing to have a full conversation about it, and just chucking monkey wrenches into the whole thing. Yeah, trolls and 5 dumbasses on Tumblr, exactly, and a bunch of videos of people on TikTok, screaming at people and being rude and off-putting and mean-spirited and gross and again, or mentally ill people who again find an anchor point in identifying as trans, whether they are or not. They may be, they may not be. That's not the point. But along with their identity or lack thereof, or their seizing of that identity or coming by it naturally, on top of that, they're assholes. They come across as assholes. They've got a short fuse. They got impulse problems, perhaps from drug use or biological issues or schizophrenia or these things. And then you stack that on top of that, and suddenly their behavior becomes trans people's issues, as if the trans aspect of this conversation has anything to do with the fact that this person's a schizophrenic asshole storming around GameStop yelling at people. Right? And if you don't understand why that can be separated, I would argue all the people who are like, but everybody's these attacks on, when somebody does a school shooting or something, they're going to swoop in and deny my rights as a gun owner because as a law-abiding, American patriot gun owner, I should be, well, then the same thing should be true of trans identity. Vast majority. Law-abiding, decent people. Just trying to live their lives, the right to pursue happiness. But you want to watch some fucking TikTok shit that Charlie Kirk and these assholes throw around, and you want to be able to take that and paint whether that person is actually trans or not, which is a conversation everybody's too scared to have, and paint everybody who's trans with that shit and make their life hell. And yet we can't ask you to register your guns or count the ammunition you're stockpiling just in case you might decide to shoot up a school. And that's tarnishing your identity as a gun owner, as a constitutional patriot, right? Can't do that. So I'm going to continue to talk this openly about these things. You know why? Because I give a fuck. Because I actually do care about this stuff. More than just like chest-beating, self-righteous jargon garglers who are like, look at me, I'm on the right side of history, right? And there are people who genuinely are on the right side of history, who do use this language because they mean well. And then they get painted with the broad brush of these assholes that make everybody else look bad. And one of the reasons is because nobody wants to step up and go, let's have the conversation. Let's have the complicated conversation about this, okay? I'm willing to do it because I'll put the fact that I actually care on the line, okay? No issue is partisan. None. How about that? There's not an issue that's partisan. The partisan part is your plan or your solution or your idea of how severe the problem is and how it must be treated. That's where it gets partisan. The border is not a partisan issue. Every country has borders. Gravity is not a partisan issue. But funding space travel versus hiring paying the FAA guys what they deserve to be in the towers versus how many, whether we're giving tax breaks to people being pilots because we need more airline pilots, that's partisan. How we avoid gravity for travel purposes. That we could argue about. We're not arguing fucking gravity. And the same thing is true, again, I'm sick and tired of trans people being blamed in this circumstance for what slacked up as fuckwads who don't know what they're talking about, who couldn't even get the terminology right themselves, couldn't even nail down what it means to address someone who's trans for real because they couldn't even get to the consensus without a fight breaking out, telling everybody else to tiptoe. Eat shit. Respect people who have earned your respect. Be respectful of strangers. Until they give you a reason not to be. But again, self-identification and all these other loose rules about this, there has to be some sort of codified form to protect trans people from some random asshole going, I identify as a woman, move over ladies, kicking their way into, I can walk around the shower with my dick hanging out. I call myself a woman. No trans person would do that. But there's a lot of sexual predators that fucking would. You ever seen To Catch a Predator? Do you think like half of those assholes would chuck on a dress in a soft law state and just so they can get away with being a fucking voyeur? Of course they would. And women and trans women deserve the right to be protected from fuckheads like that. And it is not disrespectful to trans women or women who are like, I can fucking take it. Some dude wags his dick around here, I'll hit him with a fucking chair. Some of you can. I agree. But you shouldn't have to. It's not your fucking problem. The border. We can have legal immigration and understand that we need a good legal system to adjudicate people who have asylum claims, right? And we don't have to panic when someone calls someone an illegal alien. An alien is an outsider. Illegal means they're not here through the legal means. It's not a moral choice. I'll give you an example. It's illegal to break the speed limit. But if your partner is in the car with you, your wife is in the car and she's pregnant and her water has broken, are you a criminal? You obviously are doing something illegal. That's illegal, right? That guy's a lawbreaker. Is it morally wrong in that situation? Does it vilify or take away his humanity? Because you call him, that guy broke the law driving. He was breaking the speed limit. It's illegal. Yeah, but it was an extenuating circumstance. Once you found out, that's true. If you're just an asshole driving really fast, it's also illegal, but you don't have a justification. There's no moral base in it at all. You broke the safety regs, you pay the price, or the circumstance was mitigatory, and therefore a judge or a jury would recognize that. That's how it works. Everybody wants to be part of the resistance and are you an illegal? No, I'm not. I have been, though. I would be if I went back to China, because I had a 10-year work visa and it's been revoked because of the stuff I say about China. If I went into Mexico or Canada without going through a port of entry, I would be illegal. I'd be an illegal alien in Canada. Because I'm not a citizen of that country, and I went into that country illegally. So what? Right? I'm either willing to take my lumps because I broke the law, or I had a good reason to do it, or I'm a scofflaw and fuck me. Who cares? So we got so caught up with the term illegal alien or no human being is illegal or blah, 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 that again, if you believe that, go to another country without a visa. No, I mean, is the speeder dubbed an illegal? Well, no, what I'm saying is they're a lawbreaker. That person is a criminal, technically. If they're found guilty of speeding, they're a criminal. Like if they had a hard-ass judge or somebody in the neighborhood called them that. Doesn't matter. I agree, Fish Delight, but that's also a fantastic Genesis song. The point I'm trying to make is, when you get caught too much in defending the jargon, you're as guilty of dehumanizing people as the people who are actively dehumanizing people. Because anybody standing next to a trans person and saying to them, anybody who doesn't use your pronouns properly is dehumanizing you. They're making you less of a person. This is terrible. You are under attack. Is just as bad as the person saying it, if not worse. Because your real friend would say to you, who gives a shit if they get your pronouns right? I love you. Everybody loves you. You're fine. They're just a dick. That's what dicks do. Who cares? Fuck it. Right? Why would you like codify people being dehumanized just to make yourself feel self-righteous and proud about yourself around someone else? Yeah. Defending jargon is not as bad as being Moms for Liberty member except you. Huh? Defending the jargon is not as bad as being a Moms for Liberty member except you. Well, the Moms for Liberty aren't going to affect Democrats voting for Democrats. And if we're talking about how, the importance of communication and language, and again, what do you mean by worse than? What's the standard? At what? I mean, I think the Moms for Liberty women are horrible hypocrites. They're terrible, but they also don't vote my way ever, and they're not going to. Maybe their kids will at some point. Yeah. Hold on one second. Let's see. Lyrics, let's see. So wait. This is somebody was like this. It's no fun being an illegal alien. Didn't age well as a song. Just real quick. Now I understand that a lot of you believe all art should be perfect, and if it varies in your own interpretation at all, it is immediately evil. But consideration for your fellow man would not hurt anybody. It sure fits with my plan. Over the border there lies a promised land where everything comes easy. Just hold out your hand. Keep your suspicions. I've seen that look before, but I ain't done nothing wrong now. Is that such a surprise? I've got a sister who'll be willing to oblige. She will do anything now to help me get out to the outside. So don't tell anybody what I want to do. If they find out, you know, they'll never let me through. It's no fun being an illegal alien. I tell you, it's no fun being an illegal alien, and it's getting me down. No. Yeah. It's no fun. It's no fun. Okay. And the irony of it is this was, I think, about like Polish immigrants, because there's a bunch of them in, even though it's been understood to be about like Hispanic people because of the United States, the U.S. market. Again, B-side. B-side. It was songs, lyrics were inspired by the band's difficulties trying to. Yeah, okay. So that's the song was written because they were having trouble getting visas to perform in the United States. Yeah. The song's lyrics, inspired by the band's troubles getting visas to re-enter the United States while on tour, tell the satirical story of an illegal alien facing obstacles in the process of trying to move to the U.S. Its accompanying music video depicts them in ponchos and sombreros. Reached number 46 in the UK. And what was it? Yeah. They're a satirical depiction of the frustrations an undocumented immigrant faces coming in the United States, with Collins affecting a stereotypical Mexican accent, as opposed to a colloquial specific Mexican accent. Also, do we run into this situation? This is the part of it. Hold on. Songs lyrics inspired by the band's troubles getting visas. Reached number 46, where the composition release. By the way, Home by the Sea is a great fucking song. Spooky as shit and really good. Very, all those pictures of fucking BTK in the background. Sorry about that, guys. When we were talking about that earlier. Here's what's crucial, and I'll let you guys go because I kept you a little bit over. The fight over, you know, illegal alien versus legal alien versus what is a dead conversational point that makes no sense to anybody. And considering how we feel about, like, felons should have the right to vote once they paid their debt to society, and how we believe that people, like, I'm against the death penalty, for example, and we believe that, nonviolent drug crimes should, be treated with, caution and treatment more than anything else, right? That, like, I believe those things, right? Okay. All those people are engaged in illegal things, or are criminals, or are on parole, or all these words that are associated. It doesn't automatically mean they're a bad person on a soul level or a human worth level any more than Donald Trump gets a pass because he skipped conviction on his federal charges because they didn't bring him, right? Do you think Donald Trump didn't sexually assault, isn't a rapist because he ran out the clock on the it's just adjudicated sexual assault or adjudicated rapist? Do you think there's any important distinction in that? Do you think calling him a rapist is like calling somebody coming across the border illegally illegal? Just wrong. He was never found guilty of rape in a court of law by a jury. That was just wording by. Does anybody believe it? I don't. It's fucking ridiculous. Of course he is. It's gross. Right? So again, the moral and human aspect of whether somebody's committed a crime or done something and fixed their life versus hasn't fixed their life is more indicative of their humanity than just the sheer mark on their record. So if somebody snuck into the country illegally, they can be an illegal alien. It's odd to even fight that fight to me. So peculiar. Because some of them might be here illegally, but they have a good reason. And if they're here illegally, that means the law doesn't allow for them. And so we have to fix the law to allow for them. Then they won't be illegal. Not because we stopped calling them that, but because we fixed the law that should have allowed them to come in the first place. Right? Right? What if somebody what if somebody deserves asylum? They deserve it, but they can't get it because the law is written in such a way that they can't get asylum. But they sneak into the country illegally. And now they are an illegal alien in the country. Does it mean their asylum case, from your point of view, or my point of view, does it mean their asylum claim isn't worthwhile, isn't true, isn't real because they did that illegally? And is it their responsibility that the law doesn't live up to the high standard that the American judicial system should? Or is it our fault? Right? I mean, and if there's no such thing as an illegal immigrant, then why have an asylum system at all? Why have a distinction? You mean like women and abortions? It's another great example. I'm trying to get across to you guys that we end up fighting a lot of battles about language that is meaningless and at the same time codifies the meaning of your opponent. If you agree that calling someone an illegal alien or illegal immigrant is dehumanizing, then the right has won because that's their goal. They want to dehumanize them. They don't want to look at them as human beings. And you're like, well, that's what happens when you call that. Okay, good. I'll just keep calling them that then. That works. So all I got to do is call them that and they stop being humans? Yes. Oh, okay. Whereas we're like, they're still human beings. And we can adjudicate why they're here and how they got here and whether they deserve to stay, whether someone calls them an illegal alien or not. Is any of this getting through? Is any of this, or would we just prefer to stick to the jargon wall and let ironically, the folks at TYT be the shepherds of language where you can't veer off the reservation without getting bit, so much so that you never get to talk about the depth of the issue to where you can actually fucking solve it. Because I would argue that if you don't think someone is here illegally, then it's our responsibility to fix the law. And if they're no longer illegal and they're just undocumented, then what's the document? Okay, well, the document is that they have a legal right to be here. Well, then they're illegal without the document, right? Yes. Are they automatically going to get the document? No, they have to file a thing. Okay, so until they get it, are they here illegally? Yes. This is such a fucking tongue wag. And all the while, you're either afraid to have the conversation about why it should be illegal in the first place. If you think there shouldn't be a border, then fucking say so. I don't get that at all. Mexico would disagree with you. Because you can't dissolve just one border. Does that make sense? You can't open just one border. An open border goes both ways, even if you wanted to. Hey, don't believe me? Ask Iran and Afghanistan. Yeah, don't forget purity tests, whatever that really means, Shrugs. Purity test means exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't use the right words and you don't sound like you're in lockstep with whoever the dominant person making the argument in the group is, in a cult-like fashion, you fail the purity test and you are excommunicated. You're excommunicado. That's what it means. And the shorthand of it is the TYT thing. If we don't get everything, nobody gets anything. That's the purity test. We get everything. The pure, unadulterated bill or program we are insisting on, and if we don't get that, nobody gets anything. No half measures. Fuck that. I don't care how many lives it'll save. I don't care how many lives the ACA would save. 24 million people get insurance and their kids get to stay on their insurance till they're 27. Fuck them. They should suffer and die and go bankrupt until we force this country into Medicare for all. That's the purity test. And a bunch of those fuckers didn't vote for Hillary for that very same reason. That's what the purity test thing is. The purity test was me talking to Liz Winstead and Anna Kasparian at the fucking Politicon years ago, and Liz goes, speaking of all three of us, obviously we're all supporting Bernie, but blah blah. And I said actually I'm a Hillary supporter, and from that point on I was Anna's enemy because I supported a woman running for the presidency as the top of the Democratic ticket, the party that she and her husband have been in their entire political life, versus a carpetbagger who doesn't share, the platform and only wants to, and then quits immediately after when he's not, stays an independent in between elections. Weird me, right? And again, still would have voted for him if he ended up being the person over Trump, of course. It's not a problem. I don't have those purity tests because the threat is so big. She did, though. More Bernie voters voted for Hillary than Hillary voters for Obama. No. And any she lost, she made up way more Democrats in that process. I would love to see, right said Rob, I would love to see that chart. Point I'm trying to make is, it wasn't even about Bernie or Hillary. It was about the fact that by sheer nature of, we're both talking about people who are running to head the Democratic ticket for the Democratic Party, who would have to, by the way, even if Bernie had gotten it, would have to caucus with Democrats because that would be the party he would be the head of in the House and the Senate. So where's he going to like lurch everything to the Jacobin left, right? You're just so dismissive. Yes, I am. I would say it's decisive, but yeah, I am dismissive of a lot of things because we don't have time for them. Things are too important and too serious for certain kinds of jerk arounds. It's just in the abstract, I appreciate them, but not in circumstances like this. Not where women are currently second-class citizens in the United States, and it didn't have to do with the stand down on the right. Yeah. So, anyways, the point is that she got cut off. She was the one who drew that wall in between, because I was like, no, I'm for Hillary. Like, I said it just like that. And by the way, to Liz's credit, she was like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. Oh, anyways, and she just went back to her point. Like, she didn't hang on it at all. Anna became stiff as a board, just and mean as a snake the rest of the time, which was weird. Like, she was watching Ann Coulter and Van Jones talking to each other. They were nicer to each other. And I don't particularly like Anna as a person, so it was no skin off my nose. But like watching those people just kind of, you want to talk about people who are just like happily rubbing elbows back. As I said, like Van Jones and Ann Coulter backstage at Politicon was like Wile E. Coyote and the big sheepdog, punching out at the end of their day of fighting each other. When the clock blows at 6, they just go, and then you go, see you tomorrow, Sam, right? It was just all bullshit. But there's a difference between just like not believing in what you believe and recognizing you've got to make compromises and get stuff out there. And that's why I think no issue is, and I think this is an important one, no issue is partisan. The solutions and the level of the challenge or the problem or the possibility of damage or danger that's perceived, that's the partisan part. What needs to be fixed, how desperately it needs to be fixed, and how you fix it. That's where the partisan shit happens. But the issues themselves, even if it's just to dismiss them, even if it's to go, I don't think that's important. That in and of itself means the issue itself isn't partisan. It's just that I don't think it charts in all the other shit we have to work on. I love how complicated this whole thing got. Just lovely. Can I, and I'm way over. All right, I'll save some of my clips that I was going to do for tomorrow because I got to go. But and I still am like regrowing my vocal cords after the last little bit. Again, and I want to send some love out to Caleb. He has a GoFundMe, guys. And let me see if I can. Yeah. I'm gonna copy this, and then I think I can put it in this guy. And okay. Get in here. Why do you in the world? All right, I'll have to do it later. I will post it tomorrow. Oh, Boston Brian's live? Okay, well, I'll let you guys go and hop over to him. So, much love to him. And is he on Twitch? Is Brian on Twitch so I can do a raid? Because I'm a mensch. Because I'm cool like that. Go away. Wrong page. It's gonna be this guy. I just want to be able to throw him in there, so. Yeah, there he is. Look at this dude. Look at this guy. Okay, so yeah. So let me hop in there. I'm going to send everybody over to Boston Brian's show, even though he's overlapping with me. The shots fired. Shots fired. We'll do a raid over there. Everybody send Boston Brian my love. We will, and I'll catch up with you guys tomorrow, 4 p.m. Pacific. And take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. And thanks for having a long conversation with me, kids. It means a lot. Okay, now where do we go? Let's see. Boston and the Brian. I'm going to find this in here. Hold on. Boston. Brian. There he is. Boston Brian live. Excellent. We're going to just watch. Okay. We'll start the raid in a second. Boink. It's coming. Okay, and everybody over there, throw him some bits and all that kind of stuff. Love you guys. Thanks, everybody on Twitch. Eventually, I'll be able to do it on YouTube as well. But you can hop over to his channel there as well. I appreciate you guys. Take care of yourselves. Take care of somebody else. And send everybody send a big hug to Boston Brian for me. I insist. Okay, here you go. 118 people. Bam. Let's go.
Correct. Now you'll see also that what's going on the left there is.
Hold on. There we go. Yeah, give him some love. Boom. All right. Love you guys. I will see you guys later. Take care. Bye.